Part B, question 2. The task is to produce histograms for each of the assignment and exam marks using bins of width 5%. Right, so let's start then by setting up the bins. So let's have a column, let's say here, called bins. And the idea of the bins is we're just dividing up the range from 0 up to 100% into bins of 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, so on. Okay. So what we're going to put into this column are the upper bounds of each of these bins, the first of which is going to be 5%. So we'll put that in as 0.05 and then express it as percent, so that's fine. So that's our first bin, is 0 up to 5%. Now we could just go and put in 0.1 and so on, but it would be quicker if we were to use a formula to quickly fill in this range. So how about we take this, so we want this next bin upper bound to be 10% or 0.1. So let's set a formula which is equal to the preceding bin upper bound plus the bin width, which is 0.05. Okay, and that gives us the 10%. And then we can just copy this down until we reach 100, which I think might be around there. Let's see, there we go. So we've now filled in. So what did I do there? I copied that formula, selected that range and hit paste. Okay, so that formula is then copied down to all of that range, and so it's continually adding 5% all the way through that range. Okay, so it starts from 5, we add 5 to the previous one, and then copy that formula from this cell down to all of those until we reach what we want, which in this case is 100%. Alright, that's easy. Now, the assignment marks, what we want to do is to count, basically construct a frequency distribution, in fact, to count the number of assignment marks that fall within each of these bins. Now, Excel gives us a formula, a function, a frequency function, which does this job automatically, which makes things easy. So the way that it works is as follows. We'll select all of this range right here, and we'll type in all of those values are equal to the frequency function, and it requires now 2 arguments. The first of which, two things need to be specified. The first of which is the data, which is going to be the assignment marks. So starting from A2 and then going down to the bottom. So holding the shift to select and the command or the control and hitting the down arrow takes us down to the bottom of that set of data. And so that tells us what data we want to construct the frequency distribution of. And then we need to tell the command where the bins are, where the cut points are. So let's go back up here, back up to the top, and the bins are contained in here, like that. Okay. And that's all that we need to specify for the frequency function, so we'll close those brackets. Now the frequency function is another example of an array command. So instead of just hitting enter here, we're going to have to hit command shift or control shift enter in order to get that range filled with these frequencies. So let's do that, and there they are. So what that's telling us is that there were 8 assignment marks between 0 and 5, 1 between 5 and 10, all the way down to here where we had 199 of them between 80 and 85, and so on. So that's the frequency distribution of the assignment marks. Let's do the same thing for the exam marks. That's just going to be frequency of the exam marks with the same bins as before, like that. Doing this more quickly now because I've shown it to you once before. And now there's a common thing that I do a lot is, did you notice I didn't select that entire range, just selected one cell. So if you want this to be copied all the way down, as we do, then it'd be a good idea to select that like that, and then hit the Command Shift Enter, and it gives us the frequency distribution of the exam marks in the same way. Once we have those, the task is then to produce histograms, which simply means a column chart for each of these sets of numbers there relative to these bins. So we'll do that once, let's say, for the assignment marks. So we'll go to charts and we'll enter, okay, so I've lost let's just move this across so I can show you what I'm clicking on. We're going to click a column like that, and it's just included a column graph in the worksheet like that. Now it's obviously not exactly what we want, so let's click a title like that. Now what we want it to be, actually let's put it over here, so because we're getting our data from this range, we'll go select, because we want to change obviously what's been plotted on this graph. So we've got this select data source coming up here, and what we want to plot is only, for a start, on this histogram, the assignment marks. So we don't want the bins, let's remove those. So the bins will go along the x-axis, right? So we don't want those to be one of the series on the graph. And we could put both assignment and exam marks, do it like a clustered column chart, but that's not what we want for a histogram. For a histogram we want to do it one at a time. So let's take the exam marks off here as well, and we've just got a single data series on here, which is the assignment marks. Now we do want to specify the x-axis labels to be our bin bounds. So if we click in that range and then select those to go on the x-axis labels. Okay, and that's fine now. So we have a single series on here, which is the assignment marks being plotted against an x-axis, which consists of the bins. That's what we want for a histogram. All right, so I'll go OK, and our plot now looks like that, or much more like a histogram. I'll just make this a little bit bigger, so it's easier to see what's going on. Perhaps not quite that big. Still not quite that big. All right. This is basically what we want for a histogram. All what we really need to do is to tidy this up a little bit. I'm going to remove those lines there. We could give this a slightly more informative title, such as histogram of assignment marks or something. You can put in, semester 2 of 2016, stuff like that. Oops. We don't need this legend here. There's only one data set on here, so we don't really need the legend. And what we want for a histogram as well is not to have these separate columns, but rather for them to be joined together. That's the convention for a histogram. So what I've done there is I've just gone to these bars and done a right click to select the data series themselves. Okay. So what I want to do is to format the data series. So right clicked on the bars and format data series. Let's bring it over here. And it's giving the option to change the gap width. That's the gap between each of the bars, and we'll set that to 0, like that. And there you go. So that's a histogram of the assignment marks. You can go through exactly the same steps for the exam marks as well, and it'll give you a second histogram.